Hello. Today I'm going to be using some of these aperture greeting cards I picked up from a charity shop recently, and they were £1 for all of those. I'm going to grab two. I'm going to be doing an ivory one and a white one. So I'm just going to pull those out, ready to use. In this project, I'm also going to be using some digital labels. I'm going to be using some stamps by Crafty by Tony and a Tim Holtz stamp, but I'm just going to use that text stamp at the bottom there. I'm going to be using some of my printable mica, some acetate that I've been using forever that I also picked up from a charity shop, and I'm going to be using some pressed flowers, but you could always use clear stickers. I'm going to start by cutting what would be the back of the card off, because I just want that front panel, and I'm going to do that on both of those cards. I'm going to use my pencil to just draw around the aperture. I'm doing that on both of those because I'm going to actually cut out that section on the back panel as well. I'm going to take my awl and put a hole in just so I can get my scissors in there to start cutting that piece out. So I'm just going to do that. It's a little bit rough, so I'm using a trick I saw recently actually, somebody using a file to just go round and tidy that up, and I'm just going to do the second one in exactly the same way. With that little cutout piece, I'm just going to cut a couple of punches, tabs. I only end up using one, but I cut two out, fold those up, give those a little burnish down. Now, the printable acetate I've recently bought came with a couple of pieces of card in between, and they've got a coating on, and I found this is absolutely fantastic for inking. So I'm going to ink my cards now, my specimen slides they've now become. I'm going to ink those up on that piece of cardboard. It's brilliant. And I'm going to also go around the edge with a bit of a darker ink as well. Once those are all inked up, I'm going to grab that text stamp first of all, and I'm going to grab my archival ink in potting soil, I think, and I'm just going to randomly stamp onto my slides. Once that's done, the next step is to just audition some of my labels, and I work in opposite corners, and it just so happens that I use the same two corners on both of these slides, but I have got some variations on other slides. But I'm just going to audition some labels, pick out what I want. I want little groupings of labels. I don't just want a single label. So this is a great way to use some of my stash of labels. So I think I'm happy with this setup, but I haven't inked any of them yet. So all of these labels now need inking and then gluing into place. So I'll get on and do that. Once those labels are all glued down, I'm just going to turn it over and cut off those little excess pieces that are hanging over the aperture and the side of my slide, and then give those an ink just to tidy that up a little bit. And now I'm just going to do exactly the same on the second slide. Once that's all done, I'm just going to very quickly ink up those tabs that I cut out of the centre earlier. Like I said, I actually only end up using one of these, but I'm going to ink them both anyway. So again, with the brush and then around the outside with the darker ink to get those inked up. So I've decided to match it up and use the cream slide and add a label to give it a little bit more interest, because that's quite a boring tab. And so there was a little white gap at the top there, a little empty space where I could have done a little bit more stamping. I'm going to do some stamping shortly, but I decided to use a little piece of Tony's washi tape just to give that something else. And I wish I'd used washi tape on some of the other slides actually. So now I'm going to start using some of Crafty by Tony's wonderful stamps. Just going to pull a couple out. I think I'll start off with a number, and I'm going to use my black archival ink for this. I will change the colour later. Just adding a number, and I'm going to just keep it simple, so I'm putting the same number on both of my slides. And I'm going to change it to, I think it's a little one it's almost like a postage stamp that says Britain, I think, on it. I can't remember exactly. I'm just going to add that again to both slides just to keep it simple. This stamp that says Specimen on it, and I'm going to switch inks to red just to give it a little pop of colour on those slides. So ink up my stamp. I didn't stamp this one particularly well because I don't think I was holding it very well, and you can see it's a little bit pale at the bottom, but that's okay. Now, Tony has a really little filed stamp in her collection, but I grabbed the filed stamp from my set, because it's got a border around it and it will match that specimen slide from Tony's kit. So you can see mine's in a label. So I think it's fantastic. We've both got very similar stamps, but different sizes. Again, the entomology stamps are very, very similar, but if you want a larger one, Tony's got that, and if you want a smaller one, I've got that covered. So I think that's great that our stamps work together so well. So I'm just going to glue that label onto my tab. Ink that up around the edge, and then I'm going to glue that into place. Now I'm moving on to putting the transparency in, and I'm going to use Mica on the bottom of this slide. If you use it on the top, it does distort the colour of the flowers. So I'm going to use a clear acetate on top, and I'm going to be using my printable mica for the bottom. So I've just used my Sharpie to draw the lines on. I'm not worried about that marking the acetate. It's going to be covered up when the slide is closed. And then I need to do the same again for this slide, and I need 3 pieces of this cut, one for the top of the slide on the right, and then 2 pieces for the slide on the left. So I need 3 pieces of this. Now, when it comes to gluing these in place, I'm going to put a small bead of glue around the aperture, but not too close to the edge. I'm not particularly accurate, as you can see in this video, but I'm just going to put a small bead of glue around that aperture and then line the acetate up. I love that crack in that piece at the top there. So I'm just going to push away from the aperture when I'm pushing the acetate down, and then do the same on the other slide, and then I'm going to turn them around and do the transparencies on the top as well. Now that's all done, it's time to audition some of my pressed flowers. They have got in a little bit of a mess. It's very, very difficult to take them out and put them back in the packaging. I am going to try and arrange them under some paper, but I haven't got round to that yet. It's much easier to use tweezers than it is to use your fingers. I'm just pulling out. I wanted the purple because I think with one with the mica it needs something quite bright. Just grabbing a few little bits and pieces, some of that lovely white baby's breath, and then I find a little small leaf underneath as well. I quite like that. So those are my pieces that I'm going to be using. So now I'm just going to grab my slides and organise some of these little pressed flowers into the slides until I'm happy with the arrangement. Happy, I'm going to start gluing where they overlap. I'm just double checking I've got that the right way around. So I'm going to put a tiny bit of glue on the bottom of that leaf, and then I'm going to hold that into place. Now I don't actually put tape on that one because it's got two fairly big leaves to hold that down. But I'm going to move the flowers into place, and then, I mean, this one I do put a little bit of glue directly onto the slide. Hold that in place, and I'm just going to grab some scissors to cut off that bottom bit. Just add a little bit more glue there. I'm going to trim the bottom of that dried flower, and then what I'm going to do is grab a tiny sliver of surgical tape just to put over the top and keep that exactly where I want it. But I do need to make sure it's not going to show over the top of my acetate. So I'm going to continue to glue my flowers into place and just use that tiny bit of tape to tape it down. So that's the last flower going down there. Just close that up and see how it looks. Now I'm going to glue on the top. I'm not going to glue around my pressed flowers. So I'm going to start by gluing the card, and then I'm going to glue the acetate. And again, I'm going to go round the aperture, but not too close, and then fill in the edges. I'm going to glue that closed, and then I'm going to put it under a little bit of weight just for a minute or two to make sure that glue takes. Again, make sure you glue away from the aperture. So that's the first one, and that's obviously quite nice and dry now. You can see a tiny bit of glue through that aperture, but it will dry clear. So I'm going to add an eyelet here, and these are eyelets I bought by mistake. They're a little bit bigger. I think they were from Amazon. They weren't from the trim shop where I usually purchase them, but these are quite good, so I do hope I can find the link. They're a little bit larger, so I do use the paintbrush trick that I got from Corey. Going to add my tab to this one because I'm going to add an eyelet to the tab, not directly to the slide. So my slides are now all complete. I'm really happy with how they turned out. I'll show you the 4 that I'd already made. Very similar, exactly the same process. Haven't put tabs or eyelets in any of these, but depending on what I'm going to do with them, maybe I will at a later date. That's one of the big square ones. I really hope you enjoy this project. I will be back with a video using my digital kit to make slides, probably after the weekend. I hope you like it, and I will see you all again really soon. Bye!